Because I do not. Hi, everybody. Welcome.
Hello. Thank you. Thank you.
Good. I'm gonna hit the pause and then I'll restart
Sounds good.
at like the two, like let's say the 3 minute mark, 3 to 2.
Okay, sounds good. I'm
Okay.
gonna grab some water anyway.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Bye. So as you mentioned, as
I'm sorry, I hit that earlier.
so as you mentioned, Oriental bittersweet and English ivy, yes, they are invasive and they can do damage to trees, especially the Oriental bittersweet is extremely invasive. So the best thing to do, so Oriental bittersweet and English ivy don't climb trees the same exact way. As I'm sure you're aware, English ivy sticks to the tree. They have those little hairs and they grab onto the bark. Oriental bittersweet doesn't necessarily have those hairs, so they climb in different fashions. So how you want to deal with vines in general is you want to do a cut stump method. So basically, you take a section out of the lowest part that you can from the ground, and you want to cut it about 12 inches, 8 inches, something like that. And then you apply a systemic herbicide to the actual cut wound, and that'll kill off the root system. So that's mainly how you'd want to handle vines. But you are right that Oriental bittersweet and English ivy are technically considered invasives. However, they don't pose health risks to humans and the environment at large, so they're not considered quote unquote pests.
I think this is all going to be semantics then.
It is. You're right. You're right. It's all semantics. It's all just word jargon. It's just kind of whoever decides what it's called. You're right.
So my second question is, can we access the GIS data points for each individual tree and look at the conditions that that tree is experiencing or suffering from?
Yes, so you can either look that up through the Excel spreadsheet that we sent over, or if you transfer that into a service. Tamara told me you guys actually recently got GIS. So once you put the shape files into that software, if you were to click on that point, it'll bring up. Usually, it depends on what version of GIS or ArcGIS you're using. It'll tell you all the data attributes that belong to that tree. So diameter, condition, location. Even if there's a vacant planting site nearby, it'll tell you all that in GIS software. Yes.
So we are going to transfer that layer onto our into the website. So you would come to, if you were here on the home page, you would look up the planning and zoning page. And on this page, we have a button, radio button here is view zoning map. That'll take you to the ArcGIS. And we're going to add this layer. It is in the works with staff. So as you see, you can check on whatever layer you wish. It'll be a one that'll be added right up here on the left top.
Can you let us know when that's?
Absolutely.
Can you get that exported to KML file? Because then we can put it on our phone and walk around and look at the tree.
I don't have that answer yet.
All right, I'm done. Thank you very much.
But on the question basis, I noticed that you have some recommendations for trimming Norway maple, which I would consider invasive. Would a better plan be to take it out and replace it with something else?
Yeah, I consider Norway maples invasive. Um, what you'd want to replace it with is going to be, up to you guys. You guys can, look at that list, obviously assess the site, what tree is going to be best for that site. But if you want, just another maple, sugar maples are always good. I'd avoid red maples mainly just because they are popular. However, they have weak branch unions and they tend to fail. So when they're planted as street trees, their branches tend to fail and actually damage cars. So if you want to replace a maple for a maple, I'd suggest sugar maples.
So do that rather than the trimming and maintenance.
I mean, if it's a tree that needs to be removed and replaced, then I just go with the sugar maple. But for maintenance, I mean, if a Norway maple is in relatively good health, I wouldn't consider removing it. Um, it is considered an allelopathic tree, which means it does alter soil conditions to kind of drive out other species, which is why it's considered an invasive tree. But it's not going to cause harm to other species or other trees. It just alters soil conditions a little bit, so certain species just prefer not to grow there.
Gary, did you have more? I thought you
I
did.
I do, but I'll let me think about it and someone else will.
Sure, sure.
I do have one, so where I was just thinking about, and I think one of the report pages I saw talking about an urban canopy survey. For a town our size to get the public involved because we inventory just such a small number of trees. How important would it be? What success have you seen with a urban camp, like a full town, uh, assessment? How does that help? How could we use that to kind of get a whole spectrum going in our town, not just in a small area that we inventory?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So DRG has done canopy, urban forestry or urban forest canopy assessments on a large scale. So our most recent one, at least in the local areas, we did a canopy assessment for all of Wake Forest, which includes Morrisville, the greater Raleigh area. So that can basically assess, it kind of gives you data based on how much, canopy you have, the diversity of it, heat island effects, stormwater runoff. So I mean, it's very in depth. Um, and it's very useful to have that data for the town if you want to start increasing your canopy. So we did it for, Wake Forest. We're actually doing a canopy planting and implementation plan for Mooresville right now. That's in the works. So it is very useful. It gives you a whole lot more data than just shows, oh, how much canopy you have. It's very in depth, and it is very useful. So I would highly recommend trying to go after it. And grants are given for this. So, for example, there was the North Carolina Forest Service gave a grant for Morrisville right now just to do that exact thing that you're asking about. So grants do exist for it. They are given out for canopy assessments, and it is a service that Davie Resource Group and Davie as a whole does offer. If you want further in-depth detail, this is kind of out of my warehouse because this is a lot more GIS data driven. I'm more of the field consultant arborist guy. But if you do want more information, I can send you more information on those projects. Yes.
Well, Riley, as a follow-up to that, do you have any ballpark for what, the public canopy is compared to the whole town? Just for being.
I'm sorry, can you say that again? I'm trouble hard hearing.
Would you have any ballpark for how much of the, canopy is represented just by public trees compared to the town of Weaverville? You know, it's
I
but like 5%, 10%, 20%?
so
I
I
think
mean
he's asking for, are you asking on private property as well as the town-owned properties?
Where the canopy would involve.
Yeah. The
yeah,
full,
a canopy assessment project like that would consider public and residential canopies as well. So it's the whole thing. Mhm.
So we just have to guess how much.
I mean, I know for a fact, the Davy Group, I think charged over like 250,000 for the town of the city of Wilmington, North Carolina. I spoke to the arborist, Aaron Reese, and he told me that. that was the number that they paid for it. So that's,
Oh, so you're asking for
he's
pricing.
asking costs, yes.
So once again, this is at a
Percentage. Wait, do the public trees represent 10% of the trees in Weaverville?
Sorry, I misunderstood.
Based on the size of Weaverville.
so I don't have an answer to that. That's more of our GIS team. They can give you an answer to that percentage, whether how much is privately owned versus, publicly owned properties. So yeah, I just don't have an answer. That's something that our GIS team comes up with, throughout projects like that.
So your spreadsheet showed a DBH for trees with multiple stems. How's that DPH calculated?
So that's a good question. It depends on which arborist you ask. They'll give you 10 different questions. How Davy usually measures multi-stem trees. Usually we just measure, so we say if it's a multi-stem, and if it is a multi-stem, the DBH is going to be considered just the largest stem of that tree. There are other formulas that are used throughout the industry, depending if you're in silviculture, forestry, urban forestry. There's going to be a whole different variety of ways to do that. But how it is presented in the data that was sent to you guys is if it's a multi-stem tree, we measure the DBH of the largest stem, and we just consider that the DBH.
So we sent them the comments.
Mm-hmm.
So we sent comments and there's some data slips in there, some things that didn't make sense. Did you get those, and will we get any idea when we might get an updated spreadsheet? And what other products needed corrections?
So, Riley, when I sent you that last email, it combined the board members' comments and questions, and one of them from tree board member Gary Harmon had mentioned in the field of the Excel spreadsheet, some of it had your DBH and then it showed a date. So I imagine that the formatting of the cells had gotten off on just the spreadsheet. Did you want to correct that and update that? I think is what Gary's asking for.
Yes.
So yeah, that is just formatting when we set up the map in ArcGIS Online, and then it goes to another app in Field Maps. And then once we have that data, it transfers over to an Excel spreadsheet that is then sent, to you guys. So data formatting like that, errors do occur when you're transferring from different file type to file type. That's fairly common. Um, if you're asking for us to go back into the spreadsheet and try and correct every formatting error, it's going to be in additional services outside of the scope of work from the proposal that was agreed upon.
Spelling errors. These are correct.
Right, but I mean, formatting errors should be easy to correct. Um, when there's dates, some common names didn't correspond with their Latin name. I don't know, there's a lot of little things that should really be corrected to have a good product here. But I think I'd like you to take a look at that and see what you can do for us. Because this will go on record.
I can spend some time going back in, see what errors I can find, and maybe send you guys an updated copy. But reviewing all the data and sending you guys back a whole other thing is going to be outside our scope. But I can see what I can do and see if I can kind of pinpoint those small errors
Well, take a
for
look
you
at
guys.
what Tamara sent, because I think I went through pretty carefully and found a lot of those. So it shouldn't be more than a few minutes, to get those corrected, and like I said, you shouldn't need to do a lot more review. If you just follow what those, I mean, I call them out by FID number, so it should be pretty straightforward, and I hesitate to put in our public records anything that
Sorry, I can't
we've
locate
actually
it.
changed.
Sorry, it's up here. So, I think there was just a field. Are you seeing my screen still, Riley?
No, I'm not.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. Now we are there.
Yep.
So just for one, you could see right here, this, field has like October 2nd
Yeah.
or October 20th, October 20th. I think that's what we're just, and it just probably should have been 20 to, maybe the other says 20 to 30. It maybe was 20 to,
And
Gotcha.
yeah, so
Oh, yeah, it's the formatting.
it's just a,
So,
it's the format where it,
so my only concern here is, um, if it comes to like spelling errors and minor things like that, that can be fixed. But if it comes to actual measurements, I'm gonna be putting in numbers that I'm not 100% sure about. So that's gonna leave just further errors in the data. Um, that's my only concern is if I'm gonna send you guys a revised copy of this, I'm not gonna know the actual, for example, height of these trees. I don't know the height of these trees. Just off of memory, because it was over, it was 900 trees. If it comes to spelling errors, that's something that, I'd be okay doing, but I don't feel comfortable sending you guys, height and DBH and condition ratings, um, based off of memory from an inventory that was conducted in October.
How it would be 10/20.
Yeah.
Well, you've got all that information in your original data. It's not like you'd be going from memory. You must have that in your GIS system or wherever you initially put it.
their point is that it's probably not a large tree, that these are the crabapple, for instance, here. Just is probably, the format was supposed to, they're saying 10/20, instead it said 20 October. You see it?
Yeah, yeah, correct.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, so when transferring, the data from GIS to Excel, you're going to get those errors. But if the shape files themselves in GIS are not going to have those errors, so they're going to give you the correct height of those trees.
Okay. So can we move on? Mm-hmm.
I have another question. Uh, will the Public Works be able to update these, GIS files as they remove trees or prune them or whatever? Will they be able to do that or plant them?
Yeah, so this can be a living document given you guys have a subscription to some GIS software. There are free ones out there, such as QGIS. That's a free version. I'm not sure the scope of the capabilities of it, but if you transfer all this data into an actual GIS software, this can be a living document that Public Works or whoever's going to be receiving the data from Public Works can actively update. So this is a living document, yes.
Okay, And, I was just wondering if the tree keeper, um, way of tracking tree inventory, would that be of benefit to Weaverville, or would that require like a more comprehensive inventory?
So, as a Davy employee, I'm gonna say absolutely. Tree Keeper is an amazing software. It simplifies everything into just kind of one page. It's got everything right there. It has all your data points. It's visually appealing. It's very intuitive to use. Um, however, we've done inventories for other municipalities and other private companies that have their own software already that they prefer to use. So I usually defer it to, who the client is and what they prefer. If they already have a software set up that is very similar, that they can just pop in that data and use the software they already have, then absolutely. But Tree Keeper is a kind of a streamlined subscription-based GIS platform that can be very, very easy to use and very accessible for everybody. Yes.
And what is the cost for something like that?
I believe the base subscription is around $3,000 annually. Once again, this is out of my field. This is the GIS IT Davy team at this point. But I'm pretty sure it's roughly 3,000 annually. And I think that's gonna match an ArcGIS Pro subscription base too. If not, ArcGIS might be even more expensive than that.
And do we have enough inventory, tree inventory done to make it useful?
Yeah. So Tree Keeper, um, basically, if you log in, all your data is right there, all your points are right there. If one of your team members, public works, whoever, removes a tree, for example, or does pruning on a tree, they can log into their account for Tree Keeper, go to that exact tree site, change the data, and say, "Hey, this tree was put in notes. This tree was pruned on, you know, September, blah blah blah." Or this tree was now removed and now it's a stump, and now we can put in a work order within Tree Keeper to have that stump removed. So not only is Tree Keeper basically a easy to use GIS software, but you can also schedule and send out work orders to your teammates. So for example, if David wants to, send a crew out to prune a tree that is in the database, he basically creates a work order within TreeKeeper, sends it to that crew. That crew logs on in the morning, sees that they have a work order. They look at it, they know exactly what tree it is, they know exactly where to go and exactly what to do. So not only is it GIS and a living document of your inventory, but you can also create, send, and complete work orders within your team.
And does that, cost of it include training for, people that would use it?
So we do have people within Davy that can either do a virtual training or come out and do it in person. Um, I always recommend just doing it virtually because you're on the computer anyway. But yes, we do offer training packages. Once again, this is out of my ballpark, but I believe there is either a 6-hour tutorial online or a 2-day 12-hour tutorial. So you can either do like 1 day kind of thing, or you can break it up into 2 days, which is a lot more in depth. I usually recommend the more in-depth 2-day program if you're gonna be using and sending out and creating work orders to actual teams to actually complete that work. That's a little more in-depth use of the software. But long story short, yes, we do offer training programs.
Thank you.
Um, I think that you had also brought up the topic of the vacant sites and areas, Gary, that you wanted to ask him about.
So on your spreadsheet, associated with some of the trees was a vacant, just a vacant site. How is that determined and what is its relationship to the tree that's in the same record?
Yeah, good question. So that's, a visual assessment when we're out assessing a tree. Basically, I determine that if there's a vacant site just nearby in the vicinity, usually within a 30 to 50-foot buffer area. So if I see, a dogwood at Lake Louise and there's just kind of, a open turf area that doesn't seem to be being used, or if there's, an open spot in between the sidewalk and the curb in that right-of-way area that could probably host like, a red bud or another dogwood or something small like that. That's how I would determine whether or not there is a vacant site nearby. So we didn't plot vacant sites as a tree site, particularly because, you'd be lowering your tree count at that point. But in the data, there is, if there is a spot available near an existing tree site, that will be within the data that you can pull up and look at.
And how big would that vacant site have to be? I mean, what's the parameters you use to identify that as a vacant site? 40 square feet, 100 square feet, anything?
So that's kind of just based off my knowledge as an arborist. If I see a site and there are your communication lines right above it because it's a right-of-way tree. I'm not going to recommend planting a full shade tree, a red oak there. I'm going to recommend a smaller tree like a dogwood, for example. So it's based off of my knowledge of species and diversity and what I visually see at the site. And we classify these vacant sites as small, medium, or large. And that is reflective of different species. So for a small example, you got your dogwood. A large is going to be your oak trees. A medium tree might be a red maple or something like that. So it's going to depend on the species and the genes within those species and just my knowledge as an arborist overall.
Thank you.
Nothing else for Riley? Okay, Riley, thanks again for your work, presentation here.
Thank you guys very much for having me. I appreciate it. And I will hopefully talk to you guys soon.
Thank you very much, Riley. We appreciate it.
Yep. You guys have a good night.
You as well. You were a Matt. Sorry.